Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Weather Weenies on this Tuesday. I'm meteorologist Christian Bridges. A rare appearance once again for me on a Tuesday. Great to be here with you guys.
We didn't scare you away.
No, you did not scare me away. And
we're glad to have you back.
Ryan Breton here as well.
Good to be here.
Great to be here with you, Ryan.
Good to be here. And by the way, we did get a really nice email from Kim who said last night, what a pleasure to have Christian on Weather Weenies today. Great discussion. Look forward to having him back tomorrow.
Oh, well, thank you, Kim. And here I am. You get me 2 days in a row. So
we'd love to see it.
Not super common, but I'm hoping, I think there's a couple more times.
Yeah, well, I'm off later this month, so you'll probably be here then.
Probably so.
I know Alan's got more time later in the summer, so definitely.
You'll see me a little bit more, here and there, now that it's summertime and everyone's taking their vacation.
Yeah, and we record this show in the afternoons. And it was funny. It was a long time running joke. We started this, it was more than a year ago. It was probably spring of last year. And for a while, people were like, well, where's Todd? We do this at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Has Todd ever been on an episode? Wow.
He has not.
The only one on the weather team who hasn't.
Now I think he kind of want to make a point to he's got to keep it running. That he's not.
To never be on Weather Weenies. It'd probably be like some sort of emergency or something.
Right.
Well,
at some point we'll have to get him on or do a morning recording or something like that.
Right. He shouldn't be left out of the fun.
At 3:30 in the afternoon, though, he is not thinking about work.
No.
I don't blame him.
He has a boat. So, his nice summer Tuesdays are probably looking pretty good right now.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Hey, wanted to talk a little bit about the hurricane season, and we've got the names up here. I think you had updated this list.
Yes, because just started 2 weeks ago. First. So.
Yep. And it's funny. I looked at this list, and some of you, if you follow the tropics, may be familiar with some of these names.
Right.
The lists repeat every 6 years, and it's only the storms that are retired that get pulled out.
And only one, because it's every 6 years, so 2020 was the last time this was used.
Yep.
So only one new name, Leah, replaced Laura, which hit Louisiana that year.
Okay.
So that's the only new one this season.
It's funny, during the noon show, I had this up, and I said, I remember the last Arthur.
Yep.
Then I realized it was 2 Arthurs ago, which means it was 12 years ago, not 6.
Wow.
But Arthur was around July 4th weekend. It kind of came up the East Coast. It may have brushed Cape Cod and brushed down East Maine. Can't remember if we got anything here, but I just remember I was interning down in Boston at the time, so it was, name storm on the East Coast, big deal. And then I came up here for that weekend, and as it was pulling away, we had some waves and stuff.
I was in Florida when that Arthur happened in 2014. And
I'm glad you can remember this because you're a little younger than me.
I remember it hit North Carolina as 2 or something like that. And we were a little worried that it would mess with our beach time. But in the end, it ended up going further up the East Coast and hit North Carolina. But so we might potentially be having Arthur very soon.
Well, and that's the thing. It's funny. These early season systems very often form close to land.
Right. And often are very weak, just rain producers most of the time.
And they have this fancy name now because prior to, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the Hurricane Center would only issue tracks on storms that were named.
Right.
So they ran into this issue, particularly with these close to the coast systems.
Where they couldn't get the warning out in time, basically.
So they use this name that everybody in the weather world can't stand.
It's a little bit just like a mouthful.
Yeah, potential tropical
cyclone. It's just it's a lot of words to say.
Yeah, it's a fancy name for this may become a name system.
Right, and so they use that to get the cone out sooner.
Right.
So that way they don't have to wait for it to actually form and have a well-defined center.
Exactly.
So,
and they think this will become a tropical storm. It would be named Arthur if that's the case. But this is not really going to be a wind producer. It's really just a rain producer down there.
Yeah, and depending on the track, my family is just north of Atlanta, and they're looking at potentially a good amount of rain. So, big rain producer. Luckily not a wind or surge producer. I wonder if we'll get a good amount of these sort of weak systems this year with the El Nino.
With the El Nino. Yeah, that's certainly possible. I wanted to ask you went to Mississippi State.
Yes.
And I've heard this story, but while you were at Mississippi State, you went hurricane chasing, correct?
Yes, twice.
Oh, I didn't realize twice.
3 times, actually, for 3 different hurricanes. So I've been in the eye of the strongest hurricane to hit the United States in the 21st century.
Was that Michael?
Michael,
yeah.
Which hit Florida. A lot of people don't know about this one. It hit I wouldn't say a sparsely populated part of Florida, but it wasn't a big city. It wasn't like it hit Miami or something like that. But it was a Category 5 landfall, the first since 1992. We were like 40, 50 miles inland, so we didn't get it at Category 5 intensity, but that was quite an experience.
I was here during that. I remember watching it. It came right in on the Panhandle.
Right in on the Panhandle. The eye passed right over our location. We had the true calm in the center and then the wind shift on the other side. Our hotel was ripped apart. It was me and several other meteorology students. All of them are now meteorologists at different stations across the country. But yeah, it was quite the experience. And we did not have service or power for like the entire 24 hours after the storm. All the roads were cut off.
Wow.
We were just trapped there. We had to sleep on the balcony of the hotel because the room was flooded. Water. We were on the second floor. Water had forced its way through the AC unit from the extreme winds, and it was just like smelled like mildew, and it was like really damp and hot in there. So it was actually really refreshing because it was October after the hurricane.
Yeah.
We were able to sleep outside. I've got to say the stars after that storm were incredible. There's no power.
Yeah.
No light pollution at all. So it's a really cool experience.
And it was that bad for you, 40 or 50 miles inland.
40 miles inland,
Yeah.
right? And then I think a couple years later, my family...
Like Mexico Beach was maybe where it came on,
and
right?
Panama City Beach was really hard too. And my family, we went on vacation there, I want to say the next summer, and like the damage was like shocking.
I believe
to see
it.
it still. But yeah, that was quite the experience. I couldn't contact my family for a full day, so my parents were definitely pretty worried.
Yeah.
But in the end, it was all good. And then when I was working at my first station in Mississippi, they actually sent me down to cover Hurricane Ida in 2021 when that hit Louisiana. But I was on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. We didn't get anything worse than maybe like high-end tropical storm conditions, but still, it was cool to be in there and to report live on an actual hurricane.
Yeah, that's something. We've had a couple tropical storms, but obviously,
Right.
well documented. The last landfalling hurricane was even before my time,
Right.
in New England, Hurricane Bob.
35 years ago this year.
Yeah.
And not to say that we're going to get a hurricane this year or like it's a likelihood, but we are overdue for one. New England averages one every 10 to 15 years.
We had briefly talked last week with Dana about the workshop you guys went to at the Weather Service. Was an interesting point about some of the parallels between the patterns in 1991 and 2026, right?
Yes. So at the Weather Service, Dana and I were there last week, and their warning coordination meteorologist, one of their meteorologist in charge there, basically, he was saying that he loves to like go through these like analogs and just look at how certain years compare to past years. Anyway, back in 1991, there was also a developing strong El Nino. It ended up being a below average hurricane season, but there was one storm that hit the U.S., Hurricane Bob, and that year the shear in the Atlantic that ripped storms apart was really strong everywhere except for along the East Coast. And he had a map of the comparison of 2026 versus 1991, very similar, like low shear on the East Coast. Not saying that that's just going to lead to a hurricane hitting the Northeast, but it is interesting to see that those 2 years are super similar, and that one went on to be a strong El Nino year too.
Yeah, and a lot of these El Nino years, it has to do with what's going on kind of in the middle of the ocean or in the tropical Atlantic. It doesn't necessarily mean
the homegrown stuff can get us in
Right.
those years. It's normally in a typical active hurricane season, you're watching those waves coming off of Africa. We're tracking them for 2 weeks before it even makes it to us. We've got a lot of heads up. But if it forms, let's say, like Arthur did in 2014 or Bob, like just north of Florida or off the Bahamas, you've got a lot less time before it ends up getting to us in New England.
Interesting stuff. I'd love to learn more about some of what he had studied there because it's pretty interesting. This is a great episode of Weather-weenies because we just got to chat about the weather and didn't have to drill into the details of the forecast, which, by the way, are interesting, particularly for Thursday.
Right. And kind of just a odd setup for June. We got some pretty potent troughs swinging through the Northeast, which normally this time of year, we're kind of moving away from that. We're kind of in a pretty typical summer pattern.
Right. So Thursday, it looks wet with periods of rain, some embedded thunderstorms. There is a severe weather risk probably to our west, more likely to our west and south. We probably, with an onshore wind, stay too stable.
Yep.
But
if
as
the rain moves in first thing in the morning, like we're probably fine.
And as we talked about yesterday, there just is a lot of shear and spin because the low to the northwest is so strong. So, we'll be watching the radar, but it's not something that that's worth alarm and panic. But I was going back through and comparing the pattern of the New Hampshire tornado in 2008 to this one. And there are some similarities, but I think the biggest difference is that was 6 weeks later in the summer. So it was late July, so the water was warmer.
Yes.
And it actually added muggier air to the flow and everything. So, if this had been a later in the summer type setup, maybe we would be more in on the severe weather here.
And maybe be more broken up and the storms to be more discreet, which can allow them to be stronger. Whereas this one, it just kind of looks like a big cluster of rain and storms, which can maybe hold down the severe threat for us.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll drill into that in the regular weather, so you can obviously watch that here on the app or in our newscast. Christian, thank you for being here.
Of course, great to be here. It's been great to finally pop back on weather-weenies. It's been a long time.
Well, we'll hopefully see you soon. weather-weenies at newscentermaine.com. I'll be back here tomorrow with, actually, it may just be me solo.
Really?
Or Dana may be here. Dana will definitely be here for the late news, but it may just be me on weather-weenies, so we will find out.
Well, that'll be nice.
Yeah.
Glad at least you got someone to talk to most of the day.
Right. Yeah. Take care.